Greetings, all. Greetings. Great day, I hope. Before I begin the video, I just want to say I'm going to show you a short snippet of some videos that I think you should take a look at, because it deals with subjects that I dealt with in the past. And you may hear me make a statement and have doubts about it, or say, well, I'll look at it later, and probably forgot. But then again, someone coming behind you who have never listened to me before, this is, where are you getting all this information from? You're wrong. What you're saying is not right, because they hear the mythology of history, you know. And that's what history is. It's made up of mythology and fact. And people normally give you a couple of facts and then they go off into mythology. History of the United States is, I mean, well, not only the US, but history of the US, the history of England, more in France, Germany, Rome, the so-called Seven Hills, and born from the wolves, and, you know, raised by, oh, it's mythology. But people believe it because it makes you feel proud. So anyway, I just want to say this, the information I'm showing is on, I'm using this under the fair use statutes of the United States for just for educational purposes. I do not make any money from YouTube. I just make these videos so people can expand their knowledge, and it's fun. It's fun to learn things that you haven't learned before. So here we go. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you move on from there. Go search for some of this information. Would like you to find a book called Back to Eden. It's an old book now, but knowledge in that book is immense, and it's not even a big book. It's not even, when I say big, it's not a large book, not a large volume. Should use the correct language here, but it has a tremendous amount of knowledge in it. All right, enjoy.
But infinite economic growth requires infinite consumption of resources, and the grist for the early modern capitalist mill was colonial extraction. Liberal capitalism was a triumph for Europeans. For the indigenous people they conquered, the West Africans they enslaved, and the ecosystems they exploited, it was literally the worst thing that has ever happened. Separated by an ocean from the halls of power in Parliament, the 13 colonies of British America had largely been left to govern themselves during most of their history. By the so-called French and Indian War, power structures independent of the British government were already well entrenched in America. Power structures designed to advance transatlantic economic interests. And since liberal government exists primarily to enrich capitalists, there must necessarily be a fair bit of flexibility within that ideology to accommodate the very different types of economic activity occurring on the vast seaboard stretching from Georgia to Maine. New England's power structures were the closest to what comes to mind when we think of true democracy. The province of Massachusetts, for instance, was entirely self-governing from 1691 to 1774 through the General Court, a body of elected representatives from every town in the colony. Their decentralized government reflected their decentralized economy. Most production in New England occurred deep inland in the lumber industry or far out to sea in the fishing and whaling industries. The supply chain would then pass these commodities down to the major port cities, where merchants would buy them, pack them, and ship them overseas. The collectivist ideals of Puritan settlers had New England's power structures were the closest to what comes to mind. The supply chain would then pass these commodities down to the major port cities, where merchants would buy them, pack them, and ship them overseas. The collectivist ideals of Puritan settlers had long since been replaced by capitalist individualism, but many vestigial traces remained. Local town government remained the backbone of political life. New Englanders were still all about that self-important city on a hill type stuff, and they definitely still hated Catholics, even if witch hunting and apocalypse prophecies had become somewhat passé. The Mid-Atlantic colonies were a bit more of a mix of power structures, a mess of semi-feudal, semi-capitalist contradictions. In the countryside, Dutch patroons and British manor lords owned massive tracts of land worked by tenants and squatters. Ostensibly, these landlords were elected by freeholders, but in practice, they were hereditary positions. Meanwhile, the urban centers of New York City and Philadelphia were the apotheosis of early American capitalism. Diverse and cosmopolitan, these were major industrial centers and hubs of transatlantic trade. Influenced by Dutch rationalism and Quaker tolerance, they were also fiercely socially liberal, with long traditions of freedoms of speech, religion, and the press. New York and Pennsylvania were both ruled by a royal governor, but he shared power with legislatures dominated by wealthy local merchants.
Okay. I showed you a little bit of that video to remind you of something. I always speak about the reason America came into being, and it had nothing to do with religion per se. Not freedom of religion. Yes, people wanted to practice their freedom of religion, but those in charge of building the colonies in America had nothing in mind about religion. It was about keeping their wealth and land, which the king, well, you're going to see it yourself. You're going to see it yourself. If you watch the whole video, please watch the whole video. Right? Me, I say a lot of things in my videos. It's because I was taught these things. And indeed, I'm still learning. That's why you hear me say the other day, my part of my philosophy is, I don't know what I know, but I know what I don't know. It's because that the laws in America allow us to see videos like this, and it's not hidden like before. It used to be archived and you couldn't get it, and people who put them out were allowed to charge for it. Not that this guy is not charging for it, but you know, the government kind of say, you know what, there's some things that, yes, you spent money to put together these videos, but we want to allow educational purposes to be used for this video. And that's what I'm doing. I'm using this video for educational purpose. I don't make money off my videos. I don't. And I don't want to. because knowledge is not something that I believe I should buy and sell. And as you grow, you will see that knowledge is not something that is not stored in a library. It's a very, knowledge to me is in the air, all around us. When we speak, just because somebody is out of hearing range doesn't mean that the words we speak stay with us, in front of us. They travel just like the transmission on the radio. But anyway, I with the changing atmosphere and the way things are going now, I'm kind of like showing you a lot more of, instead of like saying, look, go read a book, showing you that there are people out there who put out this information. And if you look for it, you'll find it. And you're going to need it, because if you watch this video, you will see that the same thing that happened when America came into being is what is happening today. And words should come to mind: the beginning and the end. What you sow in the beginning is what destroys you in the end. Anyway, I'm going to add some other videos onto this and show you around.
No.
Again, fair use, fair use. Another video. Go and see this video. Those of you who are talking about returning to Israel because you are Jewish, you are Jews, better watch this video. Urge you to.